Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin sitting around 108K while gold just face planted in its worst crash in 5 years, proving once again that digital scarcity beats shiny rocks. Trump's threatening 155% tariffs on China because apparently the cure for inflation is more inflation. And California's Governor Gavin Newsom signs a pro-Bitcoin law protecting your lost crypto from state sell-offs. Finally, a government HODL policy. All that and more right now on today's show. Let's go. Good morning, my fellow moon men and women, and welcome back to another episode of the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson coming to you live from our studio here in San Francisco, California. It is Wednesday, that magical midpoint of the week where motivation crashes harder than FTX, but coffee and coping mechanisms keep the market moving. Now, before we belly flop into today's sea of Bitcoin bulls, AI blasphemy, and politicians pretending they know what decentralized means, go ahead and smash that like, follow, and subscribe button like it's a buy the dip moment. And don't forget, you can find us over at RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV. Because hey, if your current financial strategy still involves hoping Elon tweets about your bag, well, you deserve what's coming your way. All right, let's see who's pumping, who's dumping, and who's praying the Fed doesn't check their wallet in this morning's market rundown. Let's go. All right, this morning, Bitcoin hanging around that 108K mark. Yesterday, we saw a nice boost happen. I think we were around even the 113 arena in a matter of minutes, but we've come back down about 3.5–4% this morning to that $108,000 level. And I want to talk about this in a little more detail. So before we jump into the headlines, let's zoom out and take a look at the charts, okay? Because price action might lie, but on-chain data, well, that is kind of Bitcoin's diary, and right now it's spilling some serious tea about where we are in this cycle. So let's bring them up here. So the first chart we have here today, this is the short-term holder cost basis chart, okay? Think of this as the average pain point for short-term Bitcoin holders, all right? So basically, the average price of the coins moved in the last 5 months. Now, right now, Bitcoin tried to reclaim that level yesterday, and it got smacked right back down. That tells us that short-term holders are still very nervous right now. They're selling near break even instead of hodling for gains. Now, Bitcoin can flip that 113.2K level into support and hold it for a few days. That's when we can finally say that momentum is officially back on track. But for now, it's rejection city, and short-term fear is definitely winning because the short-term crowd still needs a little emotional support more than technical support right now before we see the next leg up. So that brings us to chart number 2, okay? This chart is the Mayer multiple. This one measures how far Bitcoin's price is from long-term average, like checking if we're flying too close to the sun or still chilling on the runway. Now, the Mayer multiple is near the bottom of its range right now, meaning we're far from overheated bull territory. Historically, tops happen when this thing shoots above that 2.4 level, and right now we are nowhere near that. So this isn't a blow-off top, it's more like a cool down before the next leg up. In my opinion, this looks more like a bullish reset than the start of a bear market. So we're not melting down right now, we're just catching a little breath, okay? And that brings us to chart 3. This is the Bitcoin performance since its cycle low chart. Now, this one's a little spicy, okay? The cycle chart here compares this bull run to previous ones. You can see by the different colors here. We're currently 1,065 days since the last bear market low. The 2017 cycle peaked at day 1,067. So yeah, if history rhymes, we are very late stage bull market right now, but that doesn't mean it's over, okay? But it does mean that emotions are about to get a little messy. Historically, this is when FOMO and greed kick in right before things tend to get volatile. So either we get that euphoric next leg up, or the top's already in and nobody wants to believe it yet. So This time we are very deep in this time it's different zone, okay? So what's the big takeaway we're seeing from these charts this morning? Well, it is encouraging to see Bitcoin show some signs of life yesterday, but that rejection at 113.2K tells us short-term holders are still afraid of getting burned. Cycle timing suggests that we're late in the game, but not necessarily out of time. It's not do or die yet, but the next couple of weeks will show wherever this was just a healthy reset or if this is the start of something a little uglier. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we're getting into our bull run this morning with today's top story, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run where we go over the top stories of the day. And joining us for our bull run today, we have a man who's on a mission to help the world own one full Bitcoin. He's a fintech founder, a Bitcoin educator, a YouTuber, and the CEO of SmashFi, the platform turning everyday people into professional level Bitcoin investors without the headaches of self-custody chaos. So let's give a big blockchain report welcome to Brian Hoonjung Pick, everybody. Welcome to the show, Brian. We're super excited to have you this morning. How are you?
Nice to see you, Hank. And thanks for inviting me to this wonderful show.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure, and we're excited to have you here this morning, Brian. Now, before we get into today's top news, Brian, really quick, give us the short and skinny. Who are you? What SmashFi? And do it in under 30 seconds. What do you got for us?
So I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, and I DCA Bitcoin by myself, and I hold it for a very long term. I got into this industry 2016, and I wanted to provide something valuable to the Bitcoin community. So I decided to build something that the daily Bitcoin accumulators can use and work on. And there's nothing like that in South Korea and in overall Asian regions. So I built SmashFi to help people easily acquire Bitcoin and accumulate them and hold for a long term. That's what SmashFi does for Bitcoiners.
Amazing. Well, we're going to go more into you, about your background and SmashFi in just a bit, but we've got some stories today to chat about. So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to bring you back and talk about it. Sound good, Brian?
Sounds awesome.
All right, let's do it. First up, we got gold prices. Well, they're tanking harder than a meme stock on margin as they dropped more than 5% in a single day yesterday. Its worst collapse in over 5 years. The yellow metal is just about $4,000 an ounce this morning, down from its record high of $4,300 as traders finally realized that maybe, just maybe, gold's parabolic run had gotten a little too shiny. For months, gold had been the belle of the ball, outpacing Bitcoin and even U.S. equities, thanks to fears of trade wars, rate cuts, and general everything's on fire energy. Peter Schiff is calling this gold drop a shakeout, but warned Bitcoiners to sell their fool's gold while they still can, which is kind of like Blockbuster telling you to not stream movies. Gold had a good run, but while it's busy tripping over its own jewelry, Bitcoin's reminding everyone why digital scarcity beats shiny rocks every time. All right, we're bringing Brian back in. Brian, gold just had its worst single-day drop in years while Bitcoin barely moved. Do you think that investors are starting to see that Bitcoin might actually be the safer long-term asset? What do you think?
I strongly believe that. And I also believe gold is on the top right now, the peak region, because I see on Twitter and X every day that this long line outside of gold bullion bar in Australia, Sydney, and Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, India, Japan, and even in Korea. In Korea, there's something called Kimchi premium. That's when we usually call Bitcoin price in Korea is a lot more expensive than in Binance or in Coinbase. Currently, Bitcoin price is 7% more expensive than in Coinbase. And the same thing happens to the gold price as well. And when that happens, I think gold price is over 10% more expensive than London Exchange or Shanghai Exchange, etc. When that happens, I think any asset is on the top peak region because Koreans are just way too volatile and they are rushing into this trending asset whenever it's on the uptrend. So I think I already thought that gold is is going to about to decline very harshly from the top price, which was like 4,300 dollars per ounce. And I think that happened. And I don't think this is a short, just reversal. It's just, I think it's more like a long-term trend from now on. Gold will probably stay here at this range for the next a few months. And Bitcoin is the next runner of the race. They will shoot up from this price region.
Yeah, it's certainly looking like we got a lot of favorable tailwinds with Bitcoin entering Q4, and gold's been looking a little overheated right now. We've seen some pretty crazy gains this year, and for months, gold has been beating both Bitcoin and stocks, mainly because of fears about inflation and all of the global tensions we've been experiencing as of late. So my question to you, Brian, is why do you think investors are suddenly losing faith in gold now after seeing such a run for the past couple of months?
So I see there are two types of buyers of gold. The first is central banks. They have been accumulating gold since the 2020, because the Russia and Ukraine got broke out. The central banks knew the US dollar and the US Treasury were not their best options anymore. So they were actively accumulating gold, but they are not really purchasing gold to trade at some point. They're just buying gold to stack, right? The second category of the buyer of the gold is institutions purchasing gold through ETFs and the retail investors that are speculating on the uptrend of the gold. And they are now seeing this is the pick. So they are ready to sell what they bought for the last 2 or 3 years to the new buyers who are lining up in front of the gold bullion bars. And I think that's why gold is on the peak level right now. Bitcoin is a young asset, right? It's only been 16
Right.
years, and nobody's really taking care of nobody's really taking consideration about, having Bitcoin as the majority of their portfolio. And the QE is about to happen, I think. The Feds in the
Right.
US, they're stopping the QT in a few months, and stopping of the QT is automatically leading to the start of the QE. So everybody knows this.
Right.
That's why they're preparing for having enough Bitcoin before the next bull run comes. So that's why Bitcoin is getting more popular than gold.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're expecting two rate cuts here in Q4. And as we know, despite the fact that we call Bitcoin digital gold, it's still very much treated like a risk on asset, which would certainly be helped by these upcoming rate cuts we'll be experiencing here in Q4. But with that being said, we still have a lot of the gold bugs out there talking their game, more specifically Peter Schiff, maybe the gold bug. He said that this recent drop for gold was only a shakeout and called Bitcoin fool's gold. So my question to you, Brian, is why do you think people like Peter Schiff can accept that Bitcoin might in fact be replacing gold as the store of value?
Well, he's right at some point, and he's also wrong at the rest of the part. I think what he's right about is Bitcoin is not entirely store of value at this moment because it's only been here 16 years, and everybody considers it as like Nasdaq three times leverage ETF or something like that, speculative asset. I agree with that. Bitcoin hasn't acquired the degree of safe haven asset not yet. But it's going to go there, and what Peter Schiff is declining is Bitcoin will eventually flip gold and become the more popular safe haven asset in the very near future. I think Peter Schiff is just using this narrative that gold is always superior than Bitcoin to acquire more fame and get more X followers. So he has been
That's a
in
good
the
point.
Bitcoin conference last year, right? So he knows how
He
to get
was.
attention. He's just using it. I think he already knows Bitcoin will flip Bitcoin gold one day, but he just pretends it's not going to happen.
You make a very good point. He does kind of feel like the rage baiter of the Bitcoin financial space, and he's made a nice little place for himself there. People listen to him when he yells off of his soapbox about Bitcoin and gold. So I think you make a very valid point. And he's definitely, I think, capitalizing off being the gold bug in the room full of Bitcoiners for sure. And now I want to talk a little bit about SmashFi in relation to this, because you guys help people buy and hold their Bitcoin safely in this world where we are seeing more people turn to Bitcoin as a store of value. So my question for you, Brian, is are you seeing more traditional investors, maybe even older ones, moving away from gold and into Bitcoin right now?
I'm definitely seeing that trend coming, at least in South Korea. I also run a YouTube channel educating Bitcoin to Korean public. The majority of the followers of my channel is in their 50s and 60s.
Oh.
They're mostly retired people, and they are already interested in Bitcoin over gold, for a reason. I think gold is very popular to Korean people as well. We've known gold for a very long time, and we know it's a safe haven asset, and it's just comparing Bitcoin to gold is not yet a trend here in Korea as well. But more and more people are picking up and starting to understand the value of the Bitcoin because they know gold is too old. Gold is already it's over three $30 trillion asset, and it whenever its price have gone up dramatically like this, there is also a long sideway period comes after it, and they are already expecting that period to come, and they don't want to get their asset trapped in this long sideway price movement period. That's why they are interested in Bitcoin now. They understand Bitcoin has safe haven asset features, and they know it's as scarce as gold, even more scarce than gold. And they already know that government cannot take away. It's really difficult for the government to tax the Bitcoin holding Bitcoin holders. That kind of advantage over gold is what make people get interested in Bitcoin more and more, and they watch my show and then they ask me questions. Okay, I want to learn about Bitcoin. What should I do? So I already recommend them to read Bitcoin Standard of Saifedean Ammous. And I also recommend them to sometimes watch shows like RoxomTV to study Bitcoin because there are not many learning education materials in Korea. Bitcoin is a really new phenomenon here. I think you guys are leading the way to educating people outside of Korea first, and then I think that will eventually come to any Asian countries, including Korea as well. And I believe I'm also on the same route as you are doing right now. And SmashFi is also one
Yeah.
of them. I built this platform to people more easily and conveniently acquire Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin for a long term.
Yeah, no, that's the plan for sure, and we're excited that we have products like SmashFi that allow us to do that safely and securely. And as we've seen this recent an unusually seeming downturn in gold, do you think that events like this, where gold looks weak and Bitcoin holds steady, help people better understand digital scarcity and why Bitcoin might in fact be the next gold, especially in places like South Korea, where you said Bitcoin versus gold really isn't a big topic of conversation yet, right?
Right. It's not a big conversation yet. So people are more interested in KOSPI stock index going up and silver price is going up as well right now. The majority of the people are more interested in that, but Bitcoin is also a trend. So the number of the followers of my channel, only talking about Bitcoin and educating Bitcoin is 50K followers right now. I think I believe that if a Bitcoin only channel has 50K followers, then I think it shows that the the general public of the Bitcoin is already getting interested in Bitcoin. Um, there are five the largest crypto local exchanges in Korea, and combining the users of the five exchanges, there are about 12 million people already trading cryptocurrency in general. I don't really think everybody using crypto exchanges is Bitcoiners, of course. I think there's only 5% of the 12 million people knows the value of Bitcoin, but they are usually very interested in the safe haven asset and hard asset that they can preserve their wealth for a very long time. 70% of the national wealth of South Korea is in real estate. They believe in the real estate because they know real estate is a really good source of investment to preserve their wealth for the next 20 and 30 years. They are interested in gold for the same reason, and they are now interested in Bitcoin because more and more people are believing Bitcoin is going to be like that. And it's just there's too much premium in the real estate price in Seoul. There's too much premium in the gold price. I told you gold price in South Korea is 7 or 10% more expensive than the London exchange price. We also know that this is not a normal situation. So everybody's looking for the alternative asset to the gold and to real estate that they've believed in for the past 20 years. And that's why the believer of the Bitcoin phenomenon is growing up in Korea. And there will be more people coming to Bitcoin. And I'm not saying they're going to sell real estates and gold and everything for Bitcoin, but they will start with 5% of the portfolio um, dedicated to Bitcoin. And the percentage will just grow to 10%, 20%, and even 50% in the next 5 or 10 years. So Bitcoin is gradually picking up the status of gold and real estate in South Korea. I definitely see that trend.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you've seen this trend and that Bitcoin is definitely gaining more notice and traction in South Korea. But you also mentioned that it seems like here in the US, we're far ahead of you guys in terms of adopting Bitcoin. Why do you think that is? I've kind of seen that in Japan too. Is that a cultural thing where maybe people are just a little more apprehensive to jump into what's relatively a new asset class?
Yeah, I definitely believe there is a cultural aspect to it. Japan and Korea have similarity. Um, People here are more conservative to to the new tech. Um, Here in Korea, we've only been this rich for the past 50 years or 60 years. The Korean economy has grown up very rapidly during 70s and 80s. And 90s and 2000, after 2000, we're more like a stable economy. Japan, as you know, their economy has grown up rapidly during 80s and 90s as well, and they've suffered the 30 years of very stable economy, no inflation at all. So people are more calm and stable, and they are reluctant to change, and they are not welcoming the new tech and new paradigm shift to come in. So Bitcoin is just a new topic that they don't really want to talk about. It's too complex for them to understand. And I think it's the status quo. But Michael Saylor once said this: the old guard will eventually go away, and it's the same thing is happening in Korea and Japan. Those who were born in 1950s and 60s, they are getting out of the workforce, and the new generation is filling up that gap. I'm in my 40s, and my generation is more interested in digital assets and digital economy. That's why there is a paradigm shift going on in Japan and Korea now. And there are 20s and 30 people, 20s and 30s are coming into the workforce, and they are more familiar to the digital economy and anything related to digital, like smartphone and etc. So I think it's just a matter of time. Bitcoin will become the major mainstream investment asset here.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We're experiencing a great transfer of wealth right now, and as that younger guard gets older, they've lived in a world where Bitcoin has kind of always been a thing for them. So you got to imagine they're going to be a lot more willing to invest in Bitcoin and park their assets there, as opposed to this older guard that you're talking about. That's like, what is this new technology? I don't understand it, and that's understandable. So yeah, no, I think you make some really good points there, Brian. All right, move on to the next story, Brian. So hang 10, we'll be back with you in just a second to chat about it, because this morning President Donald Trump is still doing what he does best, and that's declaring economic war while saying he loves everyone involved. Okay. He recently announced the U.S. will slap 155% tariffs on Chinese imports starting November 1st. Yeah, 155%, because if you're going to start a trade war, you might as well make it a boss fight. Trump told reporters, I want to be nice to China, but China has been very rough with us. That's my Trump impression. Rough in this case, meaning sold us all the stuff we bought on Amazon. So he says years of bad presidents let China take advantage of us, and now it's time to make America overpay again. This time, though, on purpose. He called tariffs a tool of national security, claiming they're bringing in hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars. This comes as Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to meet this Halloween. But Trump says the meeting could fail to materialize, saying, maybe it won't happen. Meanwhile, India and the U.S. are also about to make trade great again themselves, as according to reports, the two countries are closing in on a major trade deal that could finally end Trump's tariff tantrum. As part of the agreement, the U.S. would slash tariffs on Indian exports from a brutal 50% down to around 15%, while India would slowly cut its Russian oil habit, kind of like quitting nicotine, but, for geopolitics. Trump told reporters that Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised him India won't be buying much oil from Russia, which is the diplomatic equivalent of your friend promising they'll totally stop texting their ex. In a post on X, Modi confirmed the call, but conveniently didn't mention the whole oil thing, because apparently India's energy strategy is guided by the interests of the Indian consumer, or in other words, we'll keep buying whatever's cheapest. Thanks. It's a big turnaround, considering Trump jacked tariffs up to 50% back in August as punishment for those Russian oil purchases. But now he's ready to make up, calling Modi a great friend, despite the fact that India just had a three-way meeting with Putin and Xi Jinping in Beijing. Because nothing says great friendship like hanging out with your buddy's arch rivals and then asking for a discount. We're bringing Brian back. Brian, 155% tariffs on Chinese imports is huge. How do big economic moves like this affect global confidence in money systems like the dollar?
Of course, it's not good for the dollar. It's better for gold and Bitcoin. China
Yeah.
has actively accumulating gold for the past 10 years after the great financial crisis in 2008, and after Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022. China has only been accumulating more gold during this crisis. And now Xi Jinping, the leader of China, is asking other countries in BRICS region to accumulate gold as well and store the gold in Shanghai, because they want to play a role like the US in 1940s, when the Bretton Woods has initiated. The US government has collected gold from these overseas central banks and stored them in the New York Feds. And then they've printed dollar, the almost infinite amount of the dollar, and spread it around the world. And China is trying to do the same. And President Trump just cannot overwatch this. So he has to stop. He has to stop the China playing the same role as the US in the world. There cannot be two suns in the sky at the same time. And I think Trump is
Right.
doing a really good job in terms of beating its competitor, the US's competitor, down. I'm not saying China is an evil and US is a good force. It's just the conflict between the two, the strongest nations in the world, and Trump is doing a good job dealing with his enemy. I also believe he's doing a good job taking this Chinese wealthy people's money out of their nation to the US using the Bitcoin network. What I mean by that is, as Trump increases the tariff applied to the Chinese companies exporting goods to the US, they have to find a leeway to export their goods, or they have to find a way to store their wealth and exit the Chinese market. As you know, Chinese stock market has been tanking for the past 5 years. Their real estate price has also been tanking for the same period. Just like Korea, China's wealth is heavily stored in the real estate market. But I don't really think real estate will ever come back up in China because there's just too much supply and very little demand. So the rich people there is just finding this way to get their wealth out of China. But it's getting more difficult and difficult because the Communist Party just won't let them do it. And Bitcoin has been doing a really good job for them. So Trump knows this. I think President Trump knows this, and he heavily tariffs these Chinese companies and let them put their assets more into Bitcoin and use Bitcoin to exit their own country, which is China. And he wants the fund of the Chinese wealthy people to come into the US eventually. It has been going to Singapore and Dubai and Switzerland, these free nations, but Trump wants them to put their wealth in the US right now. So that's why he called the US as the crypto capital in the next century. I think we are seeing the initial stage of that transition, and it's really interesting to watch what's going to happen in the future.
It is, and you make an interesting point. I wasn't fully aware that the Chinese government doesn't want the wealth coming out of their country, although that makes a lot of sense. So it kind of brings up, the point where when major economies start fighting trade wars like this, is it fair to say that that makes Bitcoin look even more attractive as a neutral global money that no country can control? Because if they're able to move their wealth out of the country using Bitcoin, that would seem like a real boon to the Bitcoin industry, especially for people in China, right?
You're 100% right. Whenever these things happen, the economic players, exporters, entrepreneurs, they are not just waiting for the government to do something for them, but they are actively looking for their exit strategy. So the rumor is in Vietnam, if you go to Vietnam and Thailand, these other Southeast Asian countries right now, there are tons of Chinese entrepreneurs coming into those countries and looking for these factories that they can purchase. Why? Because they cannot export directly to the US because of the heavy tariff. That's why they are going to Vietnam to look for this new factory that they can purchase and produce their goods there and export from Vietnam. They are also coming to South Korea too, because they at least want to change their tax into from China to Korea. So they can they can lower down the tax level. They are looking for the ways, right? Actively looking for the ways. Bitcoin is also their exit strategy. Their wealth has been stored in the real estate market, Chinese local real estate market for the past couple decades. Now, recently, they've found a way to purchase real estate in other countries. That's why in Canada, the majority of the expensive resorts in the seacoast are all purchased by Chinese people. And the same thing is happening in South Korea and Japan. The real estate price is going up because there are so many Chinese people and wealthy people in China coming in and purchasing real estates, not in their names, but in a different person's name, I guess, or in a group's name. And they are just looking for more ways to do the same thing. That's why they're interested in Bitcoin. Bitcoin, it's not anonymous, but it's more like a pseudonymous, right? So it can cover your
Right.
name once your asset is in the Bitcoin network. So that's why they are interested in it. And you can transfer assets whenever you want, freely, anytime. And that's what makes Chinese people who want to get their best route out of their country when something big happens. For example, like war breaks out between China and Taiwan, then they can, of course, move whatever they have at the moment to whenever they want to move to, right? So Bitcoin is, of course, the best safe haven asset for them. And more Chinese people are just interested in Bitcoin nowadays.
So, what is that like? I mean, as someone who's worked in the Asian financial scene for some time, Brian, are you seeing that people in places like Korea, Japan, and or China are actually seeing Bitcoin as this protection for their wealth when there is political tension like this? Or are people truly, in your experience, starting to flock to Bitcoin in that way?
Yes, yes, of course. Korea and Japan are a little bit different situation right now. The Japanese economy is rather booming up these days. After the new prime minister came into the office, Takaichi Sanae, the first female prime minister of Japan, Japanese people are more expecting their economy to boom up for the next few years. And that's because their economy has been in the same level without any inflation for the last 30 years. And they are now just coming back up on the track. So they are expecting for the good future. But in Korea, we are a little bit opposite to that, where we have been a booming economy for the last 30 years, but now we are getting into the stage where Japan has suffered 30 years ago. So we are more looking for a safe haven asset than Japanese people, I guess. And I think China is also going to the same route. Their economy, of course, is getting back up, but the majority of the Chinese people, the wealth gap of the top rich and the normal people is really big in China. And I'm talking about the majority people under 1% or 2%. And they are just, there's nothing they can expect from the government in the next 5 or 10 years. Like I said, real estate and stock market was everything for them. And gold is drying up in the market, and they just cannot find a way to preserve their wealth and stay wealthy for a long term. So they are more likely looking for alternative assets, and Korea is in the same situation too. That's why Bitcoin is getting more popular in these two countries. In Japan, I don't really think Bitcoin will is a phenomenon right now. Um, Nikkei, the stock market index in Japan, it's going to
Yeah.
the next level right now, right? It's over 40. Um, yeah, it's in the another level right now. So Asian countries are generally doing poorly against the US in terms of the stock market and capital market, etc. But Japan is following the US lead. Korea and China are falling behind, and people living in these two countries are will get more interested in Bitcoin, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that other countries feel like they're falling behind us because right now in the United States we think we're falling behind. We have this shrinking middle class, and part of the remedy for that was supposed to be these tariffs that Trump says are going to bring in trillions of dollars to America. So, from your perspective though, Brian, do you think that these policies actually strengthen economies, or does it just cause more volatility and uncertainty which might inevitably push more people toward Bitcoin?
Well, I believe it doesn't really strengthen the economy, but it's getting economy to the balance at least. Um, we're in an abnormal situation. If everything was working perfectly, then we didn't really have to talk about 100% or 155% of tariffs the US imposing to China. But the reason why President Trump is doing this because the global economy is in a really abnormal situation, and we have to get back on the track. We have to go back to the normal. So imposing these tariffs to China and other countries will actually bring the globalization back on the table the globalization was,
Hmm.
of course, the trend for the last couple decades, but it has been breaking up. It looks like global trade. It looks like globalization. It looks like the globe, the world as one nation or one country. But actually, some countries like China were taking advantage of the US. Korea was taking advantage of the US. We were not paying for anything that we're um, getting from the US, but we actually only acquire more. We always required more from the trade deal. So
Hmm.
I think the President Trump is trying to get rid of all this nonsense, and they are trying to get back up on the track as the world's leading country and world's police country. So not I'm not talking about the economy only, but also in general,
Right.
the world is going back to the normal place where it used to be in 1980s and 1990s. That's what I'm hoping for. And of
Hmm.
course, there will be tensions. Um,
Yeah.
People already believe this is the normal situation, although I don't believe it. So they are afraid of going back to the 1980s, the 1990s, which was a lot more normal than now. So there will be violence and there will be volatile times because President Trump is doing this. So Bitcoin will
Hmm.
be more popular, will become only popular when people are afraid of things happening around them and expecting more violences in the future. Then they look for something they can hold on safely without any intervention of the government. They can transfer to the other countries whenever they want. This type of thing, you can only do it with Bitcoin, right? It's the only digital scarce asset, digital gold, and nobody can stop it. So Bitcoin will only get popular.
Yeah, it certainly seems like Bitcoin is emerging as the financial steward in the monetary storm that we've been experiencing as of late. And, these trade games we've been seeing certainly aren't helping. And aside from China, the U.S. wants India now to reduce its Russian oil imports in exchange for lower tariffs on Indian goods. So, my question to you, Brian, is what do you think of that? Is that smart diplomacy or just more financial pressure politics?
I think this is a smart move by the President Trump. Korea, um, um, uh, so Japan has already lowered down the tariffs because they've made a really good negotiation with the US government. And
Hmm.
China, on the other hand, is doing really poor job negotiating with the President Trump and the US government. So that's why their tariff has only gone up after the Liberation Day, right? But Korea, I want Korea to follow the Japan's route, but it's following China's route. India has
Hmm.
been following China's route. So Narendra Modi, the prime minister there, he has been reluctant to negotiate anything with President Trump. But I think he now realizes that, okay, um, arguing and fighting against the US is not really good for his political status and also the future of India. That's why he came out to negotiate anything finally with the US. And I think it's President Trump's achievement. He's really good at bringing people to the negotiating table. That's why Narendra Modi
Hmm.
has come out. Um, the president of Korea has already started negotiating with the U.S. government. It's not working really well. So we are also paying really high tariffs than we used to pay to the US. I think it's 50% or 100, even 100% for some goods and services. Um, I think President Trump will eventually come to Korea too and bring the president here in Korea to the table and acquire even more than he used to require for. So we will actually get more punishment. That's what I'm really
Mm.
sad about. I feel really sad about. So as soon as you finish the negotiation, you lose less. But if your negotiation with the US government persists for a long time, then you lose more. So that's the general
Mm.
strategy of the US government. So you have to act very quickly. And Argentina
Yeah,
and other
absolutely.
countries have done a really good job. Korea is falling behind
Yeah.
again, so I'm sad about that.
Yeah, if Korea gets on their horse, maybe we'll give them $19 billion like we just did Argentina or whatever that huge amount was. I don't really understand it, but that's, I guess, not for me to understand. All right, we're going to move on to our deep dive with you today, Brian, and get a little deeper into what you and the team at SmashFi are all about. So, guys, let's run the stinger and let's get into it right now. All right, we're back with our deep dive with Brian. So, Brian, this is the part of the show where we learn a little bit about you and what you and the team over at SmashFi are doing. And I want to start at the beginning because you've had a very interesting career path. You went from the Air Force to corporate fabric sourcing to founding one of the most innovative Bitcoin platforms in Asia. How the hell did that career arc happen? And what was your orange pill moment? How'd you get introduced to Bitcoin that you were invested enough in it to make this switch?
Right, just like you said a moment ago, I was working for this fabric conglomerate in Korea. You know, the textile industry in Korea is still really big. We are not really producing any textiles here in the Korean Peninsula anymore, but we have exported the producer, we have exported the producing power to other East Asian regions like Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, etc. And I was working for this company, and my job was to import the textile fabric from countries like China and Hong Kong and Taiwan, Cambodia, Thailand, etc. And our company used that material to make the finished product, which is the t-shirts or shirts like that I'm wearing right now, and export it to the US as an end consumer. So as I'm a buyer of the fabric, I have to pay for our suppliers, right? But the process of the payment was really difficult. It Every time that I opened up letter of credit at a bank, at a local bank, the local bank, it usually took more than 60 or 90 days even for the payment to transfer to the supplier side. There's just too
Mm-hmm.
many intermediary banks between our local bank and our supplier's local bank at that country. And the process inside the bank is already taking too much time. So
Mm-hmm.
60 days, 9 days to get the money for what I've supplied and provided for our buyer, it's always stressful for the suppliers. They're always complaining for that to me. So I was always thinking it'd be really nice if there's a substitute for this cumbersome process. And that was year 2020, that was the year 2016 and 2017 when Bitcoin price has gone up dramatically at the end of the year, 2017, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think Bitcoin has reached to $20,000 by December. That's
Yeah.
when I got heard so much about Bitcoin from all of my colleagues at the company. So I was already skeptical about, the this banking system. So I wanted to make
Sure.
some change to it. So I wanted to work for some innovative industry or technology that can improve the banking system. So I saw this post from a local exchange, crypto exchange here in Korea, which was really successful at that time. It's called Coin One. It's now top three crypto exchange in Korea. So I moved to I changed my career to work for Coin
Mm-hmm.
One. I worked there for 1 year, and then I met some good people, and we decided to come out together and start our own business. That's why I started SmashFi business in 2019. But
Mm-hmm.
SmashFi wasn't SmashFi when we began our company. the previous model of our service was called Sandbank. It was a CeFi platform, just like BlockFi and Celsius. You are familiar with all these names, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also believe that C5 model was better um, in term for the Korean people who just got interested in the crypto. I wasn't even a Bitcoiner at that time. I was also a crypto degen. When I worked for the exchange, I was able to study the various types of different altcoins. I always look at these people working next to me who have a really unfamiliar altcoin and the price shoot up in the overnight and then they become rich. There are just too many cases like
Mhm.
this. So I was also a crypto degen and looking for these new altcoins to buy and expect 100 times or 200 times price shoot up in the overnight. But um, in 2022, 2023, when FTX collapsed, after FTX collapsed, and Terra Luna was also a huge problem. And I
Mhm.
slowly became a Bitcoiner, and I thought there's only very small number of people in Korea who are actually accumulating Bitcoin for a long term. The majority of the crypto investors in here are actively trading on exchange, but not really accumulating the Bitcoin. I realize this is a really huge problem for Bitcoin's future and even Korean people's future. So I decided to pivot our business model to SmashFi, which is only dealing with Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. And what we do
Mhm.
is really simple. We have DCA feature. We are helping retail investors to create account and use our features to easily, periodically purchase Bitcoin or buy the dip when the certain percentage of the Bitcoin price drops. They
Mhm.
are the two main features of our auto buy feature. And the second feature that we have is our own trading algorithm. It's called Shark. So we have been trading on Deribit exchange using BTC options, taking positions every
Mhm.
week and generating a little bit of yield out of our positions every week. We have been doing that. Luckily, we found a really good way to generate this stable yield every week. So it's BTC in and BTC out strategy. So even though we are a startup, we have been already profitable thanks to this trading algorithm. So we wanted to introduce this algorithm to our users as well. So from 2023, um, Shark algorithm went live. It means it's open to the general public, and the cumulative return of our trading strategy is over 300%. That's in BTC term, not USD terms. So pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So the purpose of building this trading algorithm is I didn't want our users to go out on Binance futures market and do the leveraged futures trading by themselves, but rather allocate a little portion of the Bitcoin they acquire from SmashFi platform using auto buy and trust us, let us do our own job. We are more expert than the majority of the retail investors in Korea,
Mhm.
and generate these stable yields for them. Of course, there's a trustworthiness issue, credibility issue. I know there's problems, but at least a little bit of portion of the Bitcoin, if they want some speculation, letting us do our job is safer and more convenient for them
Mhm.
than they do their on their own. And the last feature of SmashFi is self-custody. Most platforms like River and Strike, similar to SmashFi's business model, um, they just they just let the user's fund sit in the platform, right? And then
Yeah.
they disclose the proof of reserve every month or every quarter to reduce the trustworthiness issue. We've taken the different approach. We wanted people to adopt self-custody as their ultimate goal. So we've built our
Hmm.
own mobile wallet, hot wallet, also called SmashFi. And we'll eventually uh, make our own cold wallets in the near future. So what we do
Hmm.
is the platform, it's just one straight up automated process. User deposits cash or stable coin and they set up the plan. Then the BTC is bought automatically, and the BTC will be automatically transferred to the self-custody wallet. And the user can adjust the periods or the amount and anything they want to adjust in a really easy and convenient way. So I want to make the entire Bitcoin investment journey as automatic as possible and easy as possible. Because there's nothing like that in a local bank that we go and we use the mobile app every day, but there's no such feature like purchase Bitcoin periodically and move to self-custody wallet. So I want to make that happen in Korea, and I want to expand our business to other countries in Asian region, and then eventually to the North America, like the US and Canada. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, you basically built like a Bitcoin autopilot. It kind of feels like a fractional Bitcoin strategy officer for everybody individually. As we're seeing those, Bitcoin strategy officers are now getting hired now for a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies because people need a good steward that knows how to properly allocate your assets into Bitcoin. So that seems like kind of what you're offering clients, which is really neat. But it does beg the question. Brian, how do you convince people who've been burned by some of those auto investment promises in the past that your platform is different?
Well, first, I always emphasize to self-custody their Bitcoin. So we are the platform
Mm-hmm.
only helping people to acquire Bitcoin and grow the number of the Bitcoin a little bit in a stable
Mm-hmm.
way. And the ultimate goal of these investors is always transferring those assets into the cold wallet. So SmashFi has our own mobile app wallet. We are helping the purpose of our Bitcoin journey is always transferring whatever they acquire from the platform to the private wallet. So the private wallet that we built is just a non-custodial wallet. User holds their keys and user has um, it doesn't really have to share the keys with us, SmashFi. So we don't have any authority on it. And I saw many cold wallets in the market acquire people to write down their seed phrases as the beginning stage. Um, Sometimes people feel this is a very difficult step because they are used to using the bank. Bank doesn't really require you to write down your password. You
Mm-hmm.
show up to the bank, local bank, and you show their ID, then they'll find your account in the list of the customers, and then they do whatever they can do for you. But the idea of self-custody is just too difficult for the general public in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get rid of the writing down seed phrase part at the moment for now. So our wallet,
Yeah.
the unique part of our wallet is built by MPC technology. So it's a little bit different from the multi-sig and the traditional Bitcoin cold wallets. So MPC let users store the private key in the smartphone automatically. So what happens if you lose your smartphone? You lose your funds? No, because you can register other smartphones to the wallet as many as you want.
Mm.
So if you have a
Okay.
spare smartphone at your home, I'm using iPhone 16. I used to use iPhone 11 Pro. I have my spare phone still in my drawer. I can register the spare phone as one of the key shares of the wallet. So even if you lose
Oh.
your iPhone 16, you can still recover. the wallet using the spare phone. I think this is a easier way for people to understand that really don't know about the private key and public key and seed phrases, the relationship between those. So I want to
Hmm.
make self-custody as easy as possible. I want to make the entire Bitcoin investment journey as automated and easy as possible. And as people experience the joy of Bitcoin investments in this way, they will eventually learn the importance of self-custody. So that's why I do
Right.
YouTube channel. I'm educating people to understand Bitcoin in a technical way and in an economic way as well. And I'm teaching self-custody. I'm using Jade Plus, Blockstream Jade Plus as the material, and I'm teaching how to use Jade Plus to our subscribers too. So I want to make people's mind change. Um, Self-custody is always ultimate goal, and I'm educating people to realize that. And YouTube is a really good source of
Yeah.
the education. Now I have 50K subscribers, and I'm really excited about it. That
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, education is one of the most, if not most important things for Bitcoin's growth going forward. And right now at SmashFi, Brian, who's kind of the ideal user for you guys right now? Is it the hardcore Bitcoin maxis, or is it more the curious investor who's looking to dip a toe into the orange water without losing their shirt? Like, who are you catering to right now?
the main target of SmashFi is middle class people who
Hmm.
work their ass off for the daytime, and then they also have to work for uh, the second job or third job during the nighttime or during the weekend, because they cannot just follow the rate of inflation. Inflation is
Right.
growing too rapidly and their income doesn't really grow. So after their day job, after they get out of the office, they have to deliver food during the evening. And even during the weekends, they have to work for this cafeteria or local restaurants. This is a really normal case that people are facing in Korea these days. I went to Hong Kong for
Yeah.
Bitcoin Asia conference a couple months ago, and every Wobble Drive that I meet, I ask them, "Do you have a second job?" 100% of them said yes. They have two or three jobs
Wow.
because the rent price is just too high, and working for just one job, they cannot really pay for the rent. So my target
Yeah.
audience for SmashFi is these people. They it's Regardless of the fact that they realize the value of Bitcoin, I I can still provide SmashFi as their exit strategy, because I can teach them Bitcoin using our YouTube channel, even if they don't know about Bitcoin. And when they do, when they know already, and when they know Bitcoin and they already invest in Bitcoin, then I can provide a more convenient way for them to accumulate Bitcoin, right? So SmashFi is
Hmm.
targeting these people. I'm sure there's tons of these people, not just in Korea and all the other countries outside of Korea and even in the US. So my target audience is the body of the target audience is really big. And I
Yeah.
think SmashFi
Yeah.
can
And the
do a
educate.
really important role.
Oh, absolutely. And your YouTube channel, plays a very big part of that. I believe it's called Brian's Bitcoin Perspective, right? So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what are the things that if people out there are interested, they can expect to learn on your channel?
Well, it's only in Korean language, so I'm kind of sad that your audiences might not be able to understand what I say in the channel. But
Hmm.
I started as a more like an investment focus educational stuff. So I wanted to
Hmm.
help people understand Bitcoin as an investment asset, because people are too oriented in stock market and the real estate market. So I wanted to compare the difference between Bitcoin and those two traditional assets. It has been quite
Hmm.
successful, but now I've changed
Yeah, I'd
my
say so.
attention to, yeah, now I changed my attention to more advanced level Bitcoin investors, because these advanced level Bitcoin investors who all have crypto exchange account and heavily invest in Bitcoin and other altcoins as well, they don't really know the value of Bitcoin as a long-term safe haven asset. And they
Right.
even believe they are good investors, they are good traders. I don't really think, I strongly believe 99% of the crypto investors are bad investors. They
Yeah.
rather purchase at a really peak price and sell at a low price and do the same thing over and over again to drain up the balance.
Hmm.
I'm also one of
Right.
them. So I wanted to persuade people to realize the fact that you are not a good trader. You're not a good investor. What you have to do is pick up the right thing that can only go up for the next 20 years and purchase as much as you can and preserve and hold for a really, really long time and do nothing about it. And it's more like um, it's not about only investment advice, but it's more like a life. It's about life, right? You live like
Yeah.
a monk. If you become a Bitcoiner, then you almost become a monk. You exercise every day, you go out on the sun and you have a good time with your family. You don't really look at the chart and stay up all night and use the leverage and trade position or anything like that. You don't do that, right? So now
Right.
my focus is on teaching this thing to the Korean crypto investors, and it's been more fun. There's a lot of repercussion. There are a lot of criticisms, but
Sure.
I rather enjoy having arguments and discussion with them.
Yeah, no, I mean, open discourse in any realm is something we should be promoting everywhere, right? And I love that you're providing this resource for so many people that are interested in educating themselves and learning more during what are very unfounded times, especially in these financial markets. So we need stewards like you that are showing people the way. And that kind of brings us to the next part of our show here before we wrap up today, Brian. So let's go to camera 3, guys. What we're going to do, Brian, is we play a little game here on our show with all of our guests. And what we do is, as you know, 2025 been an interesting year in the Bitcoin space. We've reached new all-time highs. Maybe we got more gas in the tank as we go into Q4. So right now on the right side of the screen here, what you can see is our price prediction chart from some of our favorite guests on the show as to where they think Bitcoin is going to land by December 31st of 2025. So the clock strikes midnight. This is where they think the prices are going to be. And you can see some of the guesses here on the higher end of things. We got Knut Svanholm thinks 443,000 is in play. God, I hope so. But then more on the more realistic end of things, I'm at 142. We had Grant Cardone on the show last week. He's in the 130, mid 130s camp. And whoever gets closest to this, Brian, we're going to send a Roxom Patagonia vest to celebrate your victory. So, for fun and games, where do you think Bitcoin is going to land at the end of this year, price wise, and why? What's your guess?
I would say the price at the end of this year will be 300K US dollars.
300. Okay, why do you
Yeah.
think it's going to go that high? We got about 200K to go, but I love the optimism.
Yeah, I also agree with you that I'm being a little bit optimistic, but the fact that most people, at least those experts around me, all predict the end of the year price will be 150K or 170K, this price range, is the fact that
Hmm.
they're gonna be wrong. It always
Right.
happened before, and I think it's going to happen in the future as well. So rational means um, almost means wrong. People believe
Hmm.
this is the almost rational thing and almost certain thing to happen, then the economy or the world doesn't really work for them. So I believe
Hmm.
30K, 300K is not a impossible thing to happen.
Hmm.
And if I really tell you what's my base evidence of this prediction is, the QT is about
Yeah.
to stop and QE is about
Right.
to begin. And it only happened, the repo crisis only happened 6 years ago. And when that happened, Fed freaked out and it almost had to pour everything they got to the economy to bring back the banking system up. And the reason why QT is about to stop is because there is a signal that the banking system is already in the similar stage than in back in 2019. Powell, the chairman Powell said, when the ample reserve level is below 10% of the GDP of the US, then the Fed has to step in and bring the reserve fill in the reserve again, so the bank doesn't the reserve of the banks don't really dry up, but the level of the ample reserve in the banking system is already below 10%. So it's already signal that stop of the QT is not just stop of the QT, but leading to the immediate QE. And when the market figures out this is going to happen, then the Bitcoin price will go up in advance. It's not going to react after the Fed um, launch the QE program, but before it happens, Bitcoin will price start to shoot up. So I don't really think 300K price prediction is irrational thing, but I think it's more like a rational prediction.
Yeah, I think over time it's very rational. Just will it happen by the end of the year? I don't know, but there are a lot of tailwinds, and I think we should be see some good things coming with 2 rate cuts toward the end of the year. You said QE and QT. So yeah, I think you could be right. And I'll tell you what, if it hits 300K by the end of this year, I'm going to come over to Korea and I'm going to pick you up in my brand new hovercraft and we're going to take a net in the town in Singapore. All right. But that's only if it gets to 300K. I'm holding you to it. All right, Brian. Well, that about concludes our time here today. It's been a real blast having you on the show. And we really appreciate everything you're doing to help spread the good word and educate so many people out there about the benefits of Bitcoin. And one more time, in case there are people in our audience that didn't catch it earlier, if they wanted to learn about help custodying their Bitcoin with SmashFi, where can they go? And then what's the YouTube channel I can send them to if they're looking to increase their knowledge base?
Okay, so the website address of SmashFi is smashfi.me, SMASHFI dot me, M-E, I'm sorry. And in YouTube, if you want to look for me, and then you can type in Baekkunjong, which is my Korean name. Then the channel will show up. It's called Brian. My Korean name is Baekkunjong, Baekkunjong's Bitcoin Perspective. These days, YouTube is automatically translating my voice into the AI voice and speak in English. So I think if you're
Oh.
really interested in what I do, then you can use that feature and listen to what I say about Bitcoin. Thanks for having me today, and I really enjoyed this show. And you guys are doing really wonderful job to make Bitcoin more popular worldwide, and people educate people to understand what's going on behind the scene in the Bitcoin market. I really appreciate that.
Oh, we appreciate you, Brian. We're just standing on the shoulders of giants that came before us in this space over here and doing our best to orange pill the masses. And you are certainly a big part of that. So we thank you for everything you're doing in this space and for sharing your expertise, insights, and time with us today. It's been a blast. And next time you and the team at SmashFi got something big coming up, you let us know and we'll release it here on the blockchain report. Sound good?
I'll do that.
Cheers. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week, Brian. It was great having you on the show. In the meantime, we are taking a quick break here at the Blockchain Report, but we'll be back with more of today's top news right after this quick break. Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? Of course you are. I mean, I sure am. And the Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it just like any credit card. You can buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries. And you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It is the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Just go to Gemini.com to learn more. All right, welcome back. It's time for more of this morning's Bull Run, where we go over the top stories of the day. And for once, California is doing something smart that doesn't involve banning plastic straws. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a bill making California the first U.S. state to legally protect unclaimed crypto assets from being forcibly liquidated. That means if you forget about a few Bitcoin sitting in an old exchange account, the state can't swoop in and sell it off like a garage sale. Instead, they have to hold your actual Bitcoin, not the fiat equivalent, until you or your heirs claim it. Think of it as a lost and found for digital gold. Now, before this law, unclaimed property rules treated assets like bank accounts, sell them, cash them, and then maybe give you what's left after taxes and bureaucracy. The new law forces exchanges and custodians to transfer dormant coins directly to a state-appointed crypto custodian, unliquidated. Now, if you show up years later, you can still reclaim your coins or the proceeds if they were sold. It's the first time a state has drawn a clear legal line between cash and crypto. And that, my friends, is huge. It also sets a national precedent. Arizona and Texas have started implementing similar frameworks, but California's version is the first to explicitly ban forced liquidation. So yeah, the state might still meddle in your business, but at least now it'll hold your Bitcoin instead of dumping it on Coinbase for pennies on the dollar. And in Massachusetts, leaders are considering adding Bitcoin to its official strategic reserves. That's right, the birthplace of the American Revolution might soon start stacking Satoshis. The proposal comes from Senator Peter Durant. It would let the state use unallocated or surplus funds to buy Bitcoin and other digital assets. It would also require any digital assets seized by the state government to be deposited directly into this reserve. Now, essentially, it's the state treating Bitcoin like digital gold and trying to save in scarcity instead of debt. The bill even suggests allocating 10% of the state's stabilization fund, that's Massachusetts' rainy day money, toward crypto investments. Now, at this point, the proposal is roughly 25% through the legislative process and awaiting its next hearing. Durant introduced it back in February as part of a Republican push to modernize the state's treasury strategy. And while the idea has some local Bitcoiners ready to pledge allegiance to the blockchain, it faces an uphill battle. You see, the Massachusetts legislature is overwhelmingly Democrat-controlled, and they don't usually line up to co-sign Republican bills. Critics are calling it risky, arguing the state shouldn't park taxpayer money in something they think is volatile or unregulated. But supporters say volatility is a feature, not a bug, and that the bigger risk is sitting on a melting pile of fiat while other states sprint ahead. Because elsewhere, this isn't theory anymore. New Hampshire and Texas have already passed laws allowing their governments to hold Bitcoin and digital assets in state reserves. Meanwhile, Montana, Pennsylvania, North Dakota, and South Dakota all tried and failed to pass similar bills earlier this year. Now, if Massachusetts pulls it off, it joins a small but growing club of states investing directly into Bitcoin. And if it doesn't, well, it still signals that the conversation has officially hit the mainstream. And according to a new Bitwise report, even a tiny reallocation of gold holdings into Bitcoin could more than double BTC's price. Let's break it down here for a sec with the chart that Bitwise actually made for us. There it is. Now, at the time of this report, Bitcoin was trading around 107K. Now, a 1% shift from gold's $29 trillion market cap into Bitcoin would push the price to about 134K. A 2% rotation, we're talking a price of $161,000. 3% takes it to around $188K. 4% means $215,000. And a 5% move from gold to Bitcoin rockets the price to near $242,000. That's a 126% increase for those of you doing the maths at home. Now, even the smallest reallocation would set new Bitcoin all-time highs. And Bitwise calls this near and long-term potential of Bitcoin as it matures into the digital alternative to gold. And it's not just Bitwise hyping the math. Analysts at CNBC are already teasing the idea that gold might be peaking while Bitcoin prepares to take the lead. Even JP Morgan has joined in on the conversation, saying that Bitcoin looks undervalued compared to gold. And of course, Michael Saylor has his own modest projection, saying that Bitcoin will eventually become 10 times bigger than gold, hey buddy, reaching a valuation in the hundreds of trillions. Now, this isn't just hopium, fam. This is arithmetic wrapped in inevitability. Gold might still shine, but Bitcoin is the fire behind it. And Robinhood has opened up the fire hose, adding 80 tokens to its platform. The tokenization is steamrolling finance right now by turning real assets into digital tokens, and Robinhood is leaning all the way in. You see, the new tickers include Galaxy, Webull, and Synapsis, because apparently owning stocks wasn't exciting enough. Now you can own the blockchain version of them too. CEO Vlad Tenev called tokenization a freight train. He says it can't be stopped and will eventually eat the entire financial system, which is probably the most honest thing a fintech CEO has ever said out loud. He expects most major markets to have tokenization frameworks within 5 years, though it could take over a decade for full global adoption. Robinhood already offered more than 200 tokenized U.S. stocks to European Union customers back in June, a move that helped send its own stock to a record high. Meanwhile, Robinhood's stock is up 248% this year and is planning to expand prediction markets internationally. Because if betting on price moves wasn't already risky enough, now you can bet on other things too. Even the regulators are getting in on all the fun. SEC Chair Paul Atkins called crypto and tokenization job one for the agency, promising clear forward-looking rules to attract innovators back to the good old US of A. And if that sounds surprisingly positive, it's because the BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is saying the same thing. Fink calls the tokenized ETFs the next big move, guiding crypto natives into traditional investing, the kind where you don't check your phone every 5 minutes. He says the digital asset market, now valued at nearly $4.5 trillion, is set to grow dramatically in coming years. So, yeah, Robinhood's not dabbling. It's building the on-ramp for the future, one tokenized share at a time. And if you listen very closely, you can already hear the freight train coming in the distance. And a new Coinbase and Glassnode report found that 2/3 of institutional investors are bullish on Bitcoin going into 2026. That's right. The guys in suits finally agree on something that crypto Twitter's been yelling about for years now. The survey covered 124 institutional investors, and 67% said they see Bitcoin rising in the next 3 to 6 months. Coinbase's head of research says the market has room to run, even after October's $19 billion leverage flush wiped out more people than a Binance hack. Institutions say that they're cautious, but that's like saying sailors cautious with leverage, right? And the report points to strong global liquidity, a decent macro backdrop, and improving regulation as tailwinds. Or, in other words, the boring stuff that actually makes the number go up. 2 more Fed rate cuts are expected this year, and Coinbase says that could pull $7 trillion out of money market funds and into risk assets, like you guessed it, good old Bitcoin. And Standard Charter's head of digital assets, Jeff Kendrick, just went full bull mode, calling 500K Bitcoin by 2028 100% achievable. His reasoning behind this? Well, institutional adoption's barely started, ETF inflows keep breaking records, and the US government's shutdown makes sound money look even better. He's also got a 200K year-end target, which he admits seems a little far off, but then again, so did 100K once. Kendrick says institutions will soon dominate majors like BTC and ETH, while retail keeps gambling in the small cap circus. That means that volatility goes up, and so do the prices. So yeah, 500K by 2028 might sound wild, but so did $1 Bitcoin in 2010. We're taking a break, but when we're back, more blockchain report coming your way right after this. All right, welcome back. It's time for Whale Watch. So let's see what the whales are up to. And it looks like, well, they're going corporate. The biggest Bitcoin holders, the same OGs that used to sneer at Wall Street, are now cozying up to BlackRock, the financial Death Star itself. According to BlackRock's head of digital assets, Robbie Mitchnick, over $3 billion worth of Bitcoin has already been converted into shares of the company's iShares Bitcoin ETF, better known as IBIT. Now, these aren't retail traders panic buying on Robinhood. These are the original crypto whales. You know, the ones who used to say things like, not your keys, not your coins, right before losing them in a boating accident. It happens to the best of us. So why are they doing it, you ask? Well, Mitchnick says it's convenience. You see, after years of managing their cold wallets, some of these whales want the ease of keeping Bitcoin exposure inside their existing private bank portfolios. Or in other words, they got tired of being their own IT department, which is understandable. You see, a recent SEC ruling change helped too, now that ETFs can do in-kind creations and redemptions, meaning that authorized participants can swap ETF shares directly for Bitcoin instead of cash. That makes conversions faster, cheaper, and way more tax-friendly, which is music to the ears of anyone who's ever filed a crypto gains report. And Elon Musk's SpaceX just moved $257 million worth of Bitcoin. Blockchain analysts spotted two SpaceX-linked wallets shifting BTC to unmarked addresses, sparking instant theories ranging from Elon's buying Mars to internet internal restructuring. There's a lot of stuff going on up there. Now, this is SpaceX's second huge Bitcoin transfer in just the last 3 months. So far, none of the receiving wallets have sold a single Satoshi, meaning this might be basic accounting housekeeping. But try telling that to crypto Twitter, right? Some think Musk's prepping for liquidity needs, others think he's moving funds for security, and a few think it's part of his master plan to build a lunar node on Bitcoin Layer 2. Regardless, the move comes right as SpaceX faces pressure from NASA, which reopened its $4.4 billion lunar lander contract to competitors due to Starship delays. That, combined with Musk's internal dance between genius, visionary, and crypto chaos agent, has everyone asking, what is this guy up to this time? Now remember, Musk's relationship with Bitcoin has been like his tweets, unpredictable but highly entertaining. He once called Bitcoin a sound monetary system, then paused Tesla payments over mining emissions, then stopped talking about it altogether. More likely what's happening here is that SpaceX is tightening up its books or quietly stacking more before the next big leg up. All right, it's time to see what our robot overlords are up to in some AI, AIO. Let's do it. All right, and we're back with some AI, AIO. Let's see what our robot friends have in store for us today. Well, it looks like OpenAI has launched a new web browser called Atlas, powered by ChatGPT. Because apparently, after inventing the world's smartest chatbot, the next logical step was killing the address bar, I guess. CEO Sam Altman is calling it the browser of the future. Atlas is only available for Mac right now, which means that Windows users can go back to arguing with Edge in peace. The big innovation? Well, instead of typing in a URL, you'll just talk to the browser, ask it questions, tell it what you want, and then watch as it goes out and fetches information for you, kind of like a golden retriever, but with access to your complete browser history. There's also an agent mode where Atlas literally surfs the internet for you, predicting what you want next. An analyst from Forrester says the browser could take personality away from you since it builds a profile based on everything it sucks up about you. Or in other words, it doesn't just know your favorite websites, it knows your secrets. And while that's convenient, it also means your browser may soon finish your thoughts before you do, which is great until it starts suggesting therapy. Open wound there. All right, we're taking a break, but when we're back, we're going to wrap up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS, where we recap today's top stories and see how things are looking for Bitcoin moving forward. Stay tuned. We'll be back with that right after this.
It runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at Roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Do you wish you could grab cash without selling your Bitcoin? Yeah, same. But hey, That's why Ledden exists. They're the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Over $9 billion issued since 2018, with a perfect record protecting client assets. Now, what makes a Ledden loan different, you ask? Well, with custody loans, your collateral stays put. They don't go degen and lend it out for yield. There are no credit checks. It funds in under 6 hours. No monthly payments. You can repay anytime with 0 penalties. And for transparency, grown-ups actually want proof of reserves reports every 6 months verified by a top accounting firm. The bottom line is Ledden lets Bitcoin holders unlock liquidity without selling. All you need to do is check it out at ledden.io/RoxomTV. That's ledn.io/RoxomTV. All right, boys and girls, it's that time of the day where we wrap up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. This is where we recap today's top stories and let you know how things are vibing for Bitcoin as we go into the second half of this week. So let's recap, shall we? First up, gold just had its worst single-day drop in 5 years, crashing over 5% to around $4,100 an ounce as traders bailed from the shiny stuff and started sniffing around Bitcoin again. Bitcoin, meanwhile, bounced back from 108K lows after a rough week, proving that when the old guard panics, the orange coin starts pumping iron. I am calling bullish on this one. Sorry, Peter Schiff, but every time gold sneezes, Bitcoin catches a bid. Traders rotating out of metal and into digital scarcity is exactly what we'd like to see here. If even a small chunk of gold's $17 trillion market, or 27 trillion, whatever we're calling it now, shifts into Bitcoin, we're talking some major upside. So gold is apparently losing its luster and Bitcoin's flexing in the background. Next up, I got President Trump says that he's slapping 155% tariffs on Chinese goods starting November 1st because apparently the best way to fix inflation is to light it on fire. Markets hate uncertainty, and Trump's trade war 2.0 could easily rattle global supply chains, sending investors fleeing into anything that can't be tariffed, just like Bitcoin perhaps. So my verdict on this, mixed. It's short-term bearish, but long-term bullish, okay? Short-term, the macro chaos usually triggers sell pressure at traders' desks. But long-term, every new round of global economic insanity reminds people why Bitcoin exists in the first place, a borderless asset immune to political tantrums. So tariffs, they're bad now, but Bitcoin, it'll be good later. So mixed bag on that one. All right, last story right now, we're one bullish, one bearish with an underlying bullish narrative, and that brings us to number 3. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed the first U.S. law protecting unclaimed crypto assets from being liquidated by the state. So instead of selling your forgotten Bitcoin for fiat, the government now has to hold your coins until you or your heirs come to claim them. Well, of course, I'm bullish on this. For once, California is actually leading in something that doesn't involve higher taxes or avocado toast. This law cements Bitcoin's legitimacy at the state level and sets a precedent for other states that they will likely follow in the not distant future. Institutional trust equals long-term adoption, friends. Write that in your notebook for later. The state's finally learning how to hodl, and I think we're going to see some good price action as a result of that in the not distant future. So today's final score, 2 bullish, 1 bearish-ish. So today's final diagnosis is we got a bullish day here today, gang. Gold's collapsing, the U.S. is picking trade fights again, and California is giving Bitcoin legal respect. All signs pointing to an asset that's not just surviving the chaos, but thriving in it. Bitcoin's sitting around 108K now, but the fundamentals, they're stronger than ever, baby. Well, that's a wrap for another episode of the Blockchain Report, boys and girls. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you haven't already, do us the solid and the right thing. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report, and Hank at RoxomTV, wherever you choose to get your Bitcoin-related info. And we'll be back tomorrow, our normal time, 8 a.m., for more crypto chaos and Bitcoin bedlam straight to your screen. So until then, stay safe, stay informed, and always be sure to hodl on.